What is going on, YouTube? What is going on, Kansas City? And what is going on, everybody? And welcome to the Beat of KC. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Lucas Murphy, and the reason I'm chuckling already is because the Kansas City Chiefs, ladies and gentlemen, have just impressed me even more. The Kansas City Chiefs will come out victorious against the Las Vegas Raiders, and really, if you kind of just set aside the fact that the Las Vegas Raiders just are not a good football team. They have sustained some injuries, but really, this is majority of what their team really is. Now, they did miss their starting tight end. They were missing a few of their wide receivers. But ladies and gentlemen, if we're being honest, this Kansas City Chiefs team literally came locked in and they came ready to play. I mean, holy smokes. It was incredible to see this Chiefs offense take it to a level that I don't feel like we've seen in a few years. It felt like it did not matter who the option was. The play was going to be successful in some form. And I really think that that is what is most impressive about this is you're playing teams like the Las Vegas Raiders, who we know are just not a good football team. And the fact that they handled business the way they did, and Patrick Mahomes was able to sit out the entire fourth quarter. I think if you told somebody you only have one sentence, just one sentence, it can't be a never-ending sentence. You can only say one sentence to somebody how this game went. All you would have to say is Patrick Mahomes sat out the fourth quarter, and it was because of the play in the entire game. I think it's just incredible how this has gone about. So we're really going to kind of dive in and just do a little bit of a recap. Now, Patrick Mahomes was 26 of 35 for 286 yards. He did average 8.2 yards per pass. He threw 3 touchdowns, and there was 1 sack. He had an overall rating of 126.6. We would see Gardner Minshew come in. He really didn't do a whole lot following him. But the fact that Patrick Mahomes was able to put up those numbers in 3 quarters, absolutely insane. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the rushing, and I think I'm a little bit still heavily kind of disappointed with this rushing attack. Yes, the team has found a way to rush for 151 yards, but 28 of those yards came from Patrick Mahomes again, who averaged 7 yards per carry, and one of those was Xavier Worthy for 13 yards again. So you're really kind of taking a chunk of that out. I mean, if you look at this, Isaiah Pacheco had 15 carries for 57 yards, averaged 3.8 on the ground, and did have 1 touchdown. He did have the longest of his rushing attacks was for 11 yards, but ladies and gentlemen, that's just not going to cut it. And even though that they were able to successfully defeat the Las Vegas Raiders in an insane fashion, you're going to have to be able to run the football at some point. You're just going to have to be able to. You're going to have a statement game from this rushing attack, and it's just not continuously happening. And this would have been a huge opportunity for them to do that, and they just never were able to really get that going. Now, Brashard Smith has been given the opportunity to carry the ball for 12 times today due to Kareem Hunt kind of sustaining an injury. Look, he got rolled up on very early on in this game. He did come back into the game, but I think obviously with how big of a blowout this game was, they're giving Brashard Smith a lot more opportunity. And so there's 13 carries for 38 yards for Brashard Smith, and he only averaged 2.9. And now when he's getting the bulk of his carries, yes, you're getting a little bit more of your secondary offensive linemen. Caliendo played a majority of the game for Trey Smith, who was dealing with a lower back injury. I do believe Jawan Taylor was dealing with an injury too. I think he was questionable. Not quite sure exactly to the extent of what that injury is. But when your offensive line is kind of getting banged up, you're not having the same contributions for a guy like Brashard Smith. And so to really kind of see how he was able to function in this offense, I think it's kind of 50-50 just because you're not getting the elite offensive line out there. And at the same time, he's coming in for garbage minutes. He did contribute pretty significantly in the receiving, category, which we'll talk about. And that's really his background, ladies and gentlemen. Brashard Smith is a wide receiver that was converted to a running back. So I always anticipate that he's probably going to contribute a little bit more in that category. So Let's go ahead and dive in and look at a little bit more of this wide receiver room. Now, Travis Kelce came out hot, ladies and gentlemen. He really a significant catch for 44 yards, really kind of in that first initial wave of drives. He finished with 3 catches for 54 yards. He was targeted 3 times. Now, Rashee Rice, ladies and gentlemen, the man is back. And the EGE hashtag stayed true. Stayed true. Everybody is going to eat. And it happened. Rashee Rice, 7 receptions on 10 targets, 2 touchdowns, averaged 6 yards on the in through the air, and had 42 receiving yards. Now, obviously, that's not a ton of yards, but you're seeing how he's being incorporated into the offense. We saw a lot of kind of quick wide receiver bubble screens where we were seeing a lot of kind of RPO style to Rashee Rice. The stuff that we're used to seeing with Rashee that really opens up this offense. And ladies and gentlemen, did it ever. Now, Bashard Smith, who we talked about in the run game, contributed 5 receptions for 42 yards on 5 targets. He did have a decent catch. I believe it was a screen pass. I think it was 3rd and 15, and it went for 17 yards. He's averaged 8.4 yards through the air. Really a big contributor this game was Bashard Smith, ladies and gentlemen. And then Tyquan Thornton, literally coming out of nowhere. He was targeted twice. He had a deep ball that it looked like the sun was in his eyes because the way he was going, towards the sun. And I'm pretty sure the sun got into his eyes. The defender was able to kind of get his hand up there too, but he would catch a significant ball, 1 on 2 targets, 39 yards. And so obviously his average and his long was 39 as well. Juju contributed as well. 3 receptions on 3 targets for 35 yards, averaged 11.7. Xavier Worthy, again, 3 for 35 on 4 targets, 11.7 as well. His long was 15. He did look like he hurt that shoulder again. He would go to the sideline, throw his helmet. It looked like the training staff really kind of looked at him. Andy came over to talk to him, and he basically told him, "I'm good to go," and he was out there the next drive. Obviously, with the way the Chiefs handled this game, they quickly pulled him out of the game, probably to kind of just make sure that injury does not get any worse. Noah Gray, 1 reception on 1 target. It was a big one for 28 yards. And then Hollywood Brown, kind of coming out of nowhere for a touchdown. He did have 2 receptions on 4 targets for 14 yards in that touchdown, 7 average yards through the air. And then Pacheco. Ladies and gentlemen, Pacheco is... he had 1 reception on 2 targets for -3 yards. So Pacheco, I think, is really kind of, dropping down a tier when it comes to really the receiving category. And we're even kind of seeing that a little bit with the running category. It's probably something we're going to continue talking about through the rest of this year. It's just kind of, it's interesting to see how he runs the football. In years past, it felt like he was able to find holes and really kind of get out in space and kind of be shifty a little bit. It's just like he doesn't break off those runs anymore. He hits the hole and it's like everything just crumbles down on top of him. It's something we're definitely going to be talking about. And as far as, the turnover game, really Hollywood Brown had a fumble, but it was recovered by Xavier Worthy. It literally bounced right up into his hand. Jerry Tillery was able to recover a fumble that was from Kenny Pickett, who did fumble it, and Jerry Tillery was able to get it. Now, Trent McDuffie surprised me today, ladies and gentlemen. The reason is because he really led this team in tackles, 6 total tackles, 4 solo tackles. But we were also able to see a lot of these guys in the secondary kind of do that in that category, even though there wasn't a ton of opportunity, which we'll talk about. But like Chris Roland Wallace, 4 tackles, 3 solo. Noel Williams, who I'm consistently going to talk about no matter what video I do for the Kansas City Chiefs. Noel Williams, 3 tackles, 1 solo, just continues to play at an elite level. And then another thing to kind of look at is the sacks. Ladies and gentlemen, we were able to get a sack from Chris Jones. I think is the most insane thing because it's like we've been building up for that. Chris has been building up for an opportunity to get after the quarterback. Granted, he did take on a ton of double teams in this game, but he was able to swim move, get past, and really get a sack on Geno Smith. Now, there's really not a whole lot to talk about from a Raiders perspective. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, Geno Smith was just abysmal. I mean, 10 of 16 for 67 yards, only averaged 4.2 yards through the air. He was sacked again by Chris Jones for 5 yards, and he only had a rating of 71.6. Kenny Pickett would come in behind him, really contributing absolutely nothing, going 2 of 2 for 8 yards. And then Ashton Jeanty, ladies and gentlemen, everybody was high on Ashton Jeanty. I myself was high on Ashton Jeanty. I really believed that Ashton Jeanty was going to be able to somewhat successfully run the football. I didn't think he was going to have this all-world breakout game and people are going to be talking about it forever because Ashton Jeanty's this beast. But the fact that they held him to 6 carries for 21 yards and only 3.5 on the ground, I think it played into really how this defense factored in Ashton Jeanty to the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs offense was able to just score at will, except for really one significant drive where they had to kick a field goal. This offense scored at will, so what you did naturally was just take Ashton Jeanty out of this game. They were forcing Geno Smith to do what he's abysmal at, and that is throwing the football to guys that really are probably playing rec flag football somewhere because they just were without their weapons. So the fact that they just naturally took Ashton Jeanty out of this game just speaks to how good this defense and this offense really played today. Now, the leading receiver for the Raiders was Trey Tucker. He had 5 receptions on 6 targets for 33 yards. He did obviously average 6.6. Trey Tucker is a decent player for them. One of the guys that I anticipated really kind of having a day was Dante Thornton Jr., but ladies and gentlemen, he had absolutely no contribution whatsoever. 0 receptions, 0 yards on 3 targets. And then to finally kind of wrap out this group, Ashton Jeanty had 1 reception for 1 target for 13 yards, and really a guy that we kind of hyped up just a little bit. And when I say me, we really kind of hyped him up a little bit is because Brock Bowers was going to be out. So we were really thinking, Michael Mayer might have an opportunity to kind of take some balls from Geno Smith, but it just did not happen. I mean, Michael Mayer, the tight end from Notre Dame, had 1 reception for 2 targets, 10 yards, and that was it. I mean, this game was so lopsided. It literally was so lopsided to the Kansas City Chiefs that it got to the point where you're thinking to yourself, when are we seeing Gardner Minshew? When are we going to start seeing all these secondary guys? And ladies and gentlemen, that happened in the 4th quarter. This was an absolute domination from the Kansas City Chiefs. This was yet again, granted, a lot of people kind of understand where the Las Vegas Raiders are currently at. They will be 2-5 on the year, and they will obviously really stay continuously at the bottom of the AFC West. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs will advance to 4-3, and they will start to be climbing up in that AFC West standings. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this was an absolute statement game. Yes, you were facing an abysmal team, but the fact that your offense did what it did and your defense is doing what it's doing on a consistent basis to most teams, this is where this team starts to become scary. And like I tweeted out, they're really fitting into spooky season, ladies and gentlemen. They're really starting to kind of fit into a mold that is scary for other teams in the NFL. Like, I would not want to play the Kansas City Chiefs right now. There's so many people out there that are doubting this team, that are questioning this team. And there were a lot of people that were like, oh, they started off cold. It just doesn't look like the same team. They just look abysmal. They're struggling to do this and this. And yes, there's still tons of improvement that they can make, 100%. We just talked about one in the rush attack. But the fact that we were able to do what we did on offense today and still put up 31 points over that 30 mark, the Kansas City Chiefs should be taken very, very seriously. They should be, on a lot of people's radar for just a team that is going to dominate. And another thing before I wrap this video up, Patrick Mahomes, hands down, the number 1 front runner for MVP. There's absolutely no question. And it's going to continue and continue and continue. And the reason is because he got his weapons back. And like we stated, I'm going to recap his numbers one more time. 26 of 35, 286, 8.2 through the air average, 3 touchdowns. And ladies and gentlemen, Patrick Mahomes is having a year. He is absolutely having a year. He's going off. I appreciate you guys checking out this video. Make sure you guys comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of this Kansas City Chiefs football team. Spooky time. I'm telling you, it's going to be scary for opposing teams facing this team. And there's a lot of questions that we're going to have to kind of get through this week because there were some injuries. Omar Norman-Lott sustained what seemed to be a pretty serious injury. The offensive line sustained some injuries. We're going to really have to kind of understand and put this stuff together. And yet again, Josh Simmons still not around. So there's a lot of things that are still missing, and they're still not fully at 100%. And what they were able to do today, insane. Appreciate you guys checking out this video. Smash that subscribe button, smash that like button, and I end every video the exact same way. Have a good day.